Greetings from India to all of you. Today my topic is going to be family togetherness, the Indian perspective. These last 2 days we all have been talking about family, the bedrock of the society. And it's been so in India too for the last few years. And we see the strength still the strength of family is evident in many of the families. But definitely the influences are being seen where families are beginning to get disconnected with the digital world, the global trend of nuclearization and relationship with the technology. But yet, I would say that India is far better and we have a lot of positives. So, though we say that worldwide trend is there of disconnected families, less families being formed, those formed being fragile, and those formed not enduring enough. When I look at India, there is something beautiful about India's culture. It's basically a land of diversity. We have 25 states, but all are different. The culture is very, very strong. There's a whole feeling of collectivism, and family is still very, very important. When we ask people, like I have in-depth interviews with people regarding families. So when I ask, suppose I say family, what is the word association? So they say love and support, togetherness and love. And there are times they say, even if you call me in the middle of my sleep and ask me, what is family to you? I'll say love and togetherness. So that's something really positive. Others say that family means you always have somebody for you. You know that they are there for you. They're just one phone call away. These are the sentiments of the people that I've talked to. Another person says family means we should be able to give 100% to our family members in terms of our time, energy, money, etc. There's nothing like you. It is always an us. So that us and togetherness is something that is still being seen. Traditionally, when we look at India, we've been having joint families. And when we say that joint families, basically we see they are members of different generations, and there's activity and bustle all through the year because something or the other is happening. There's a wedding in the family, the birth of a baby, so it's all the time, a lot of things are happening. So there's a lot of connection with the extended families. People are just buzzing in and out, and we find that the extended families are able to give a lot of support during stressors of everyday life. We'll find that the families are able to maximize the resources of child rearing. So if one of the daughter-in-laws is going to work, the children may be looked after by the other daughter-in-law of the home. The cooking may be handled by somebody else. So it's a lot of sharing of everyday work and resources. There's also a lot of emotional support during times of crisis. And because of the multiple caregivers, life becomes much easier than in the maybe sometimes the Western culture. So as I told you, there are events where the whole family is there for the weddings, births. Like even when you are fixing up a wedding, we ask everybody, when are you free? Then only the date is fixed up. It's not fixed up due to my convenience. It is the convenience of everybody, then only the dates are fixed up. So we could say that our invisible holy thread connects families in India. And this presentation, I'm trying to explain to you what is it that is holding these families together. Why is it that they're still surviving? And to cover it in just 10 to 15 minutes is very difficult. So I'm trying to do it with 3 cases, which I'll just briefly discuss with you. The names in the cases are not their real names. The pictures are not the real pictures because I have ensured confidentiality to the people who have shared it. Now, if you look at case 1, Mr. and Mrs. Kapoor, they are right now in New Jersey, and they are here to help Meghna during her childbirth. Mr. and Mrs. Kapoor are actually living in Mumbai, and they're coming here for a month and a half to help her with a newborn baby. They're totally involved with the little baby, enjoying the little one day in their lives. Now, I want to ask a question to you. Who do you think Mrs. Kapoor is? Is Mrs. Kapoor Meghna's mother? Is she Meghna's sister? Who do you think? Okay, the answer is no. Mrs. Kapoor is Meghna's husband's grandfather's brother's wife. Okay? I'll come back to the reasons of all this, but this is how it is, this kind of a togetherness, that they needed this. They needed the help because this Meghna was having a knee problem. She had to go in for a surgery. She couldn't look after the baby. She had to be coming in. And Mr. and Mrs. Kapoor have come in, leaving their own mother-in-law there to look after her. Okay? Another case I will talk to you is Ajay is a 30-year-old with a 1.5-year-old daughter and 2 older children. He is presently in the hospital donating his liver. Who is he likely to give his liver to? Is it to his family or for his brother? Why has he taken this decision? Any guesses? Okay? Well, the answer is again, he's not the brother, not the, he's not donating it for his father or for his brother. He's donating it to his father's brother. Okay? Was he forced to do so? No. He was not at all forced to do so. If we look back into Ajay's life, about 20 years back, Ajay lost his father suddenly with a heart attack. And this man, who was Ajay's father, said, no problem, I'm there to look after all the children of my brother. So financially, emotionally, everything, he just did everything for this. This family of Ajay, they live with 43 members in their homes in one house. Okay, that is the kind of togetherness that they are having. Okay. So if we look at Ajay, Ajay will call him Big Daddy. That's how the love is. He's not called an uncle. He's called, like in Hindi we say, Bade Daddy. That means Big Daddy or Big Mummy. So it is like, I give you the same respect as that of my mother or of my father. The third case is Mrs. Gupta is 72 years and she's suffering from dementia since 5 years. Mr. Gupta is himself 76 years and basically was the caregiver of his wife. They don't have any children and they lived alone. Now, who's supposed to look after Mrs. Gupta? Is she going to be sent to an old age home? No. It is Mr. Gupta's brother's son, who has his own family, but he has taken the responsibility of looking after his aunt. Okay? And at times when he is not able to help out, or he has to go on a business tour, so then what happens is, Mr. Gupta's 2 sisters, who are also above 70, they come and take over, and they stay on for a month or 2. So all these cases, why did I share is, in all these cases we see it is the family which is the main psychological support for the family members. Family, not only the nuclear family, but the extended family who is there for them. And what do you see there again? We see the voices of sacrifice. It's all about placing others before you. It's not me, it's all about the others. And that's what families are for. These are the sentiments of Mrs. Kapoor. When I say, how come you are leaving your mother-in-law and coming here? She said, this is what we families are for. And I think this is the right thing to do. So this kind of a sentiment is there in the family. So being available for the family. Now let's try and see, okay, in all these families, what are the cornerstones of togetherness? What is it that is leading to them being what they are? So we can say one is collectivism, enculturation, family values, religious values, open communication, local settlement patterns, and family traditions. I'll just run through them very quickly. India basically is being a collective society, and so they are looking at everything from the other's perspective. Of course, individuals are allowed to think for their own, take up opportunities which are there. That's not being stopped, but still it is, the others are also important. So you'll find that in a collective family, there is a lot of interpersonal concern, solidarity, loyalty, and the individual's needs are sometimes sacrificed, but they are not doing it with a lot of unhappiness. They are very positive about helping out others. So it's not with a grudge that you're doing things. So that's what the beauty of it is. So because of this, we find that there's a lot of family support in different events. When the family members are old, when they are widowed, when they are never married adults, disabled, unemployed. So this kind of a thing is seen in many of the families. So when we look at the collective families, we always find that there is multi-generationalism, where it's not only the father, mother, and the children, but definitely the grandparents, the uncles who are there. So there's a lot of positive interaction. Also very strong ties with the extended family. So you'll find that, see, one thing about India, we don't have so much of luxury and money, so the houses may be smaller, but there is always room for the family. So people don't mind having people all over. Okay, you have to sleep on the carpet, you'll put a mat and you'll sleep on, but family is important. So that's what is something. And it's beautiful when we look at that. The thing is, even little children, they grow up with this kind of, the parents are showing a lot of respect to the grandparents, so the children also, the grandchildren say there's a lot of love between the grandparents and the grandchildren too. The family values, if I look at it, it's basically a culture that definitely respects elders. Of course, today there are changing times. We see there is elder abuse also happening. So I'm not saying everything is positive. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to celebrate such positive examples. Even in India, I need to promote these positive examples so that we retain the flavor of, the strength of the families. This you see that the lady is touching the feet of the elders. That's a tradition in many of the families among the Hindus, where when you get up in the morning, you have to touch the toes of the elders. When you have a wedding or a ceremony or a particular religious festival, you go and touch. And the elders will say, may God bless you. So it's a kind of culture which is there, which again adds to, okay, the value that you place on the elders. There's a lot of open communication. In a study that we had taken up in our department also, we found that between the adolescent and the parents, we were expecting that today there will be some kind of deterioration in the communication time. But it was amazing that they were communicating a lot with the parents, and as the weekend came in, it became more hours, but through the week, at least on an average, 2 to 4 hours of interaction was there. Like, I had gone to Sydney 2 years back, and when I was in Sydney, I was visiting a cousin. And we stayed there for about a week or 10 days, and at the end when I was going, the day before that, she told me, I wish you were staying here more. I said, why? I'm troubling you already. Why are you? She said, when you were here, my kids were coming out of their rooms and being in the living room and talking. We had so much of fun. After dinner, they would sit here. But once you leave, they will go into their own rooms, their own cubicles, be busy with their, electronic devices, and that's what I'm losing out on. But in India, still I would say, people are together, talking, so it's fine. There's something you sacrifice, but there's something that we get. So we find that communication enhances the togetherness because there is clarity of messages, there's disclosure, discussions. In India, generally the fathers don't share too much with their children. It's the mothers. So the kids go via the mothers to tell something to the fathers, especially they need favors and things like that. Today, the younger generation, the trend is changing. Fathers are also very, very involved. But in our generation, it is mainly that kind of a thing we see. I think I could just run about. The family traditions that are there, the family time that we see, the family routines, maybe you also have all of these here, but when I look at the family dinners, again this is based on the research, we found that about 59% of the adolescents were having dinner with their family 5 to 6 times a week. And it's only 19% who could just have it 1 to 2 times a week. So that was a good trend still of family dinners being there. Small little tasks of everyday life. This is just like, you want to oil, like women, generally girls have long hair and they find it difficult to handle it. So, oh mom, you have to oil my hair. You have to help me do that. But that little task also is, adding on to the, the bonds between the parent and dad. Whenever I talk to the people like Mrs. Kapoor also, I said, what is it that has built up your family togetherness? She said, my childhood memories of my cousins, my aunts, we were all so much together. They would all come in, there would be about 20 or 30 of us running and doing things in the park, going out, seeing movies. So these activities has kept up the bonds that you want to continue today itself. So these childhood memories are something that I feel that we have to enhance even in today's generation. Are they alone? Are they with their families? Is something that we could do it. Of course, religious values are also there. In many families, regular prayers together, it adds on to the togetherness. We have a lot of festivals. We have so many, like I think we have at least 25 to 30 holidays through the year for different festivals, and that is the time people just come together and there's a lot of interaction. So even if they're staying very far, they come together and they do that. I think I'm off time. Okay, then I would not talk this case. Okay, this is a case for where a son who left his very, he was having a pay of very good pay, but he left that job and he came looking after his mother who was very, very old. He said, I want to be in the city so that I can look after my mother. So he gave up, unlike his other friends who had, bigger salaries and bigger things. Here in India, it is marriages are not only between the husband and the wife, it is between the families. And that is evident in many of the activities. Like Mrs. Kapoor, when she came here, her own mother came to look after her mother-in-law. Okay, so it is give and take. Okay, I think I will not go on into cases. This is togetherness among, again, scarcity, so I don't have the, you know, a big car, but we can travel and we can have fun together. So you will see that all these are there. It's not safe, I understand. They don't have helmets, I can understand. But this is what is reality, okay? But there is also some charm in the whole thing. Togetherness in cooking, togetherness. At the airport, if somebody is coming now to States or to England, they're going away, you'll find that about 50 people are there to bid them bye. You know, that is the kind of commitment. Even you will find that if somebody is ill in the hospital, again, it may not be very good for the patient, but they are all over the bed to look after the baby. So I feel that we need to celebrate families, let's give tribute to them. And one of the ways in which we could do is the sibling power. You know, if today we are able to make the bonds of sibling very good, we will be able to have a better relationship. There we also have a festival which is called Rakhi, where the brother ties, the sister ties a Rakhi on the brother's hand. So that's also, it is celebrating relationships. Okay? So I think, thank you, and sorry if I've extended my time.
Is this on? Okay, sorry, Jenet Erickson had to step out briefly, so I am subbing for her. So let me read Dr. Koshy's bio and then we'll... It's okay. So it's brief. She completed her bachelor's and master's degree in child development and family relations and a PhD in interdisciplinary education. She started her career working in a child guidance clinic, but being passionate about teaching, she joined the faculty of the Department of Human Development, S.V.T. College, SNDT University in Mumbai, India, where she has been for 30 years and is currently serving as department head. Next, we're going to hear from Steve Phelan. I hope I get these names correct. Please correct me later. Steve will talk about fatherhood and social justice, how our society's inability to focus on the most important needs of the family is a call to men to take their roles as fathers seriously. So some information about him. He is the Director of Mission Communications for Human Life International, the world's largest international grassroots pro-life and pro-family organization. He has produced documentaries on the fight for life and the family in the Philippines, Eastern Europe, and Central America, and is currently working on one shedding light on the harm done to women in Africa by long-acting reversible contraceptives. As a writer or editor of hundreds of articles, Stephen's work has appeared in such publications as First Things, Crisis Magazine, The Washington Times, The American Thinker, Lay Witness Magazine, LifeSite News, and many other publications. Stephen.
Good afternoon again. Seeing that picture of everybody on the motorcycle reminded me of our trip to Dar es Salaam. And I still have nightmares over being behind a woman holding her baby on the back of a taxi motorcycle and weaving in between buses and things, and they made it, and makes you grateful for the big highways of Salt Lake. So the role of fathers and true social justice is my topic today. In order for a child to have the greatest chance of flourishing, a father must be present in the home. I want to highlight the disconnect between this fact that is supported by enormous amounts of social science, and which is kind of common sense, and the fact that it's actually controversial to say that these days. A lot of us are even a little skittish to bring it up, but that disconnect is something I think is important for us to pay attention to, because a lot of the people, or those who want to redefine marriage, are doing so in the language of social justice. So I want to focus on that and also give us something to kind of walk away with today as we go home. Also, quick note here, I'm talking about fatherhood, and it's also a fact in the same data that most of the families where you're talking about a single parent, you're talking about a father being out of the home and the mother being home. So it's not to say that fatherhood is more important. If anything, motherhood is, but I'm not going to meditate a whole lot on on whose role it is. Just know that that's part of the assumption here. And while the statistics we've been hearing a lot about obviously have a very sobering effect, I'm not sure they change behavior. We're not talking about fathers or even fatherhood, but we're talking about men with wives and children, or men who are children in different states of relationships. And we're talking about love and the demands of love, which has to precede justice in I think, any conversation that's going to result in true structures of justice. And what we're aiming for is a better sense of fatherhood, and the fruit of fatherhood lived well, which is intact, loving, generous, and responsible families, and thus a more just society. So we've been hearing a lot of detail the last couple days about the importance of the father in the home, the statistics, Mark Regnerus and a lot of others talking about like what that actually means in numerical terms. But this is actually kind of old news. It was 50 years ago that Daniel Patrick Moynihan put out the Moynihan Report, and I don't know if anybody here has heard of that. But it was 1965, and he later became a senator, but here he was just still working for the government, and I guess that's kind of the same thing, but before he was a senator. He put out a report about black families in America, and he was pretty heavily attacked, mostly from the left for the report. And it was interesting because it was actually a forecast of what has certainly happened. I mean, it wasn't so much prophetic, I don't think, as it was common sense to say that the breakdown of what he called the nuclear family would lead to a host of other societal ills. There was a group that just last year, 2013, did a report on it, following up on Moynihan's report, the Urban Institute, and I think they have a very short introduction which kind of sets it up nicely. So although Moynihan described a tangle of pathologies, from disintegrating families to poor educational outcomes, weak job prospects, concentrated neighborhood poverty, dysfunctional communities, and crime, that would create a self-perpetuating cycle of deprivation, hardship, and inequality. He saw the breakdown of the nuclear family as the fundamental source of weakness in the black community. Moynihan argued that high non-marital birth rates among blacks and the large share of black children raised in female-headed households created a matriarchal society that undermined the role of black men. Because of diminished authority within the home, black men would abdicate their responsibilities as husbands, fathers, and providers, and the pattern would repeat itself from one generation to the next. And this was 50 years ago. So calling such findings prophetic sounds right, but it's kind of misplaced because this is actually database stuff that has only been a case that's only been strengthened and made more obvious by the state of the modern black family. Being a good Democrat, Moynihan also recommended a variety of government programs as the remedy. Though in the report they were actually sort of weakly stated, he didn't really go into a lot of detail. It was more the discussion after his report came out where people thought, well, what program is going to turn this around? And as I think most of us agree, that's really not the right way to look at it. He was actually attacked for a report that blamed the victims. And it was used as findings to actually grow government programs that were supposed to help the poor, quote unquote. So 50 years later, with every social marker of black families in America blinking red with alarm, there remain people so ideologically committed to the government first model of social justice that they continue to see government action as our primary collective moral calling. And this isn't so much what we Catholics call a preferential option for the poor, as it is an ideological preference that the poor remain poor. So again, was he prophetic? Maybe. Was it common sense? Absolutely. The government cannot and will not save a culture that abandons the virtues of family and fatherhood. So advocates of life and family must be engaged in the government, if for no other reason than to stop the assault on life and family that is often wrapped in the language of social justice. But from Moynihan's report, the question comes up, is this actually a racial issue? And we actually know, or we should know, that this isn't the case. Folks in here might have heard of Charles Murray, another author, social scientist, who's been very busy lately writing some very prescient work. And he wrote a book recently called Coming Apart. And it's notable for a lot of reasons, but one I wanted to focus on was just to briefly mention how he is able to use the data and control for race to remove it as much as possible as a factor in these situations and look at like what might be other factors other than race. So his data sets were families and their socioeconomic factors, and he was interested in finding out, among other questions, why it seems that the elite are moving apart from the rest of society, and why those in the lower economic range seem to be growing in number and also moving away from society in the opposite direction. He found that those in the upper economic range had entered almost a type of hermetically sealed society, where they went to the best schools, had the best jobs, They met people and married people with the highest IQs, and a whole host of associated social norms that characterize this group that is increasingly isolated and pulling away from society. They have more opportunities and money, so they go to the best schools, they meet the best people, you know. And so, and I think Murray actually uses he uses like genetics here, like he thinks there's a genetic thing. There may or may not be anything to that. I'm not really comfortable with that language myself, but that's a side topic. So what he found on the lower end of the social economic strata, so it won't necessarily surprise this crew here, but they were increasingly isolated also from real opportunity, not necessarily by race, though there's obviously a racial correlation there. They have children born out of wedlock, the marriage rates have plummeted, there's almost no religious practice, which was a little bit surprising. There was actually more religious practice at the range of the higher level. And with these, of course, come less education, more problems with drugs and crime, other behaviors, which together practically guarantee membership in the lowest rung of society. So if there's a finding that's been confirmed over this 50 years, it's that our society is coming apart because the family has fallen apart, not because we haven't spent enough in government to save the family. So when we look around and we see the wreckage of the true social injustice, so poverty, crime, and the whole host of ills that the social justice industry wants to blame on inadequate government structures and the failure to adequately shame those who are not suffering as much, we should know that the structures most in need of repair are family and marriage. Our panel today is talking about family relationships, and I mentioned these social justice issues, what sounds like a tangent, but to bring it back to the point, is that for men especially, for fathers especially, social justice begins in the home. We Catholics have what we call our social doctrine, which is a long and thoroughly developed set of teachings going back to the 19th century about how society should be ordered. And a lot of times when you hear this brought up, it's actually bizarrely brought up in this way that, you know, what Catholic social teaching means in any public context is to vote Democrat. That's obviously nuts, or maybe not obviously, but it should be considered as a little bit nutty. In truth, the teaching doesn't favor a particular party. It favors truth about human nature and what actually leads to true human flourishing. So among the principles that are actually based in this teaching are the dignity of the human person, the common good, solidarity, and subsidiarity. The last of these is the one that's probably the least common among our language here, but it's basically the idea that social problems should be addressed at the lowest level possible, and that we should only resort to higher level remedies for these things when absolutely necessary and in ways that respect the lower levels' role and responsibility. So on this view, the family comes first. The ills we see around us are largely due to the failure of families and of our society to uphold the family. But to me, this responsibility falls primarily on us men. Not only because the statistics of family breakdown almost always assume the absence of the father in the home. That's just kind of like the macro level view. But on the micro level view, we're talking about love. My wife, my children. And this is the view not of social justice and how to save the world and society, it's the view of love. As we can see, the failure of love has led en masse to huge implications of what our society looks like now. But it is ours as men to love and to love sacrificially, which I was glad to see affirmed in Indian culture as well. There are many moments when we as fathers are overwhelmed with joy with a cute baby or just being grateful for our wife, for being given someone just great to love. And our little troublemakers running around the house breaking things, but it's also important to know that, well, to realize the truth that a lot of times we just don't feel that. Our feelings are not in the right place for work issues, family issues that predate our own family. So it should be obvious, but it makes sense to mention that love is not about our feelings. That it's actually, we're talking about a two-sided coin of our response to people and in the truth of who they really are and about our responsibility to that person. So I love my wife, Diane, not because I'm trying to save the world, which I know I can't do. Somebody's already taken care of that. But I have to love like the one who has taken care of that. So I have to love like Jesus in a sacrificial way, even at home with my wife and children. It's a kind of love that fathers know hurts a lot of times. But again, that's not the point. It's the shape of the love that we have to have as fathers. And if we get this right, if we love like Christ, If we develop a serious prayer life in order to know Him better, we have a great shot at being a good father. And thank God, literally, thank God, that's not really up to us. So this kind of love, evident in loving family relationships, evangelizes and forms. I mentioned something in the plenary yesterday about how my brother knows all the theology and everything, but he shows up with his like little gang of terrorists, my friend calls them, and they show up and everybody just starts smiling to see these kids with each other and interacting with their parents, and that also evangelizes before you get to Catholic social teaching, for example. But this kind of love also lifts people up within and around our families. It radiates a kind of hope that makes justice seem more attainable, and it makes decay seem less inevitable. So justice is the fruit of love. Love comes first. We love God first and our families in light of this love. And this is how God's justice takes root in the world, especially for us fathers. So, thanks.
All right, we are going to move to Kathleen Bahr next. Her topic is working together and growing together, the virtues and creative power of shared household work. Kathleen Bahr is a retired associate professor in the School of Family Life at Brigham Young University. She completed a bachelor's and master's degree in home economics and a PhD at Michigan State University in human ecology. Her teachings and research have taken her to Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, and various American Indian reservations. Her research interests include a lifelong study of the effects of family work upon individuals and families, and the study of family cultures of everyday living, including grandparenting, family ritual, work relations, family ecology, values, love, sacrifice, and family transcendence. She co-authored the books Family Science and Toward More Family-Centered Family Sciences, and has published in the Journal of Marriage and the Family, Family Relations, Social Forces, and other professional journals. Professor Bahr's primary acquaintance with family work came from growing up as eldest daughter in a family of 13 children. I can't imagine. She and her husband, Howard Bahr, are the parents of 5 sons.
I was hoping I would be last. You sure you don't want to go? Earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal published a short essay by Jennifer Wallace, Why Children Need Chores. CBS News picked up on the story and invited Wallace for a live chat about this important idea. One aspect of the dialogue was, why, of course, everyone knows chores are good for kids. Journalists and scholars continue to find that chores are good for children. For example, children who do regular chores do better in school, have fewer behavior problems, and importantly for our discussion, have a greater sense of family cohesion. Curiously, even though we all seem to know this, children today don't do much family work. A 2014 report from Braun Research discovered that of 1,000 adult respondents, 82% reported doing regular chores while growing up, yet only 28% said they require their own children to do regular chores. Research on adults and family work focuses on issues of fairness and equality and balancing paid work and family work. Adults report household work is a source of stress. Disagreements about chores are a primary source of conflict between husband and wife and between parents and children. Older children, that doesn't surprise anybody here, does it? Older children in particular are not willing workers, and the common quick fix of paying children to work has its own complications and doesn't last. Judging from this research, adults find little satisfaction in doing family work and would be happy to arrange family life so each has to do as little as possible. There is little sense of gratitude or love for this work. Most adults recognize that families everywhere, including our own, must be fed and clothed, yet commonly see this work as more burden than blessing. These findings are unsettling. Do we truly see daily family work, the labor required to nurture and sustain life in our families, as burden? And if so, is there reason to transform this view, to learn to see work as a blessing, not just for children, but for the whole family? I believe there is. There's nothing like holding up my notes so you can watch my handshake. Trifocals. At this conference, we hear abundant evidence that everywhere families are struggling and societies are struggling. Might there be a connection between our mostly negative view of family work and the struggling families and society? Gordon B. Hinckley, a former president of the LDS Church, speaking to business managers, spoke of the seemingly insurmountable challenges faced by families and societies today, then offered hope that these trends might be slowed or even reversed. How can that happen? He said, there's nothing any of us can do that will have greater long-time benefit than to rekindle wherever possible the spirit of the kind of homes in which goodness can flourish. How might that happen? He continued, what, you may ask, can be done? The observance of 4 simple things on the part of parents would, in a generation or two, turn our societies around in terms of their moral values. They are simply these: let parents and children teach and learn goodness together, work together, read good books together, and pray together. So the question becomes, how do we teach these things together in our families? Can we teach and learn goodness together at the same time we work together? I believe we can. Realistically, always working together is not feasible. But we reap dividends in terms of family relationships when we take at least some time to do family work together. But a simple idea, but in practice it is challenging. Let's look at what needs to happen if our families are to learn to work together cooperatively. I once made a list of the reasons adults give for not liking housework. The list included that it is mindless and menial, and doing it may feel demeaning, plus the work is never done. It must be done over and over. And while young children love to help, their help often reduces efficiency and makes the work take longer. Older children don't want to be bothered. It's hard to get them to cooperate. However, these same disliked characteristics of family work hold the potential for blessing. In fact, it is the very things commonly disliked about family work that offer the greatest possibilities for nurturing close relationships and forging family ties. As parents recognize this possibility in family work, seeing it as a blessing, so will their children. Let's take a closer look at some of these dislikes. Some people dislike family work because they say it is mindless. Yet chores that can be done with a minimum of concentration leave our minds free to focus on one another as we work together. We can talk, sing, or tell stories. Working side by side tends to dissolve feelings of hierarchy, making it easier for children to discuss their interests and concerns with their parents. I observed a mother one morning when her children were getting ready for school, each hurrying to finish chores before leaving. For one daughter, the task was to wash the breakfast dishes. The daughter said she was sick and couldn't go to school. Her mother looked at her. She didn't look sick. "Come on," she said, "I'll help you finish the dishes." Daughter washed, mother rinsed and dried. As they worked, mother asked, "So what is going on at school? How are your friends?" Gradually, the daughter began to talk. There had been a fight among friends, and she was afraid to go to school. Her mother suggested possible ways of handling the situation. Working side by side, the daughter began to relax. And as they finished, the mother put an arm around her daughter and saying, "To know you is to love you." Dishes done. I forgot to mention that the mother helped her think through ways to help work out the problems with her friends. So dishes done, the daughter skipped off to school. I wondered how different the scene might have been without the work time together. We also think of household work as menial, that is lowly, humble, low status, somehow beneath us. Here we may need to re-examine our own attitudes. If this work is essential for our own sustenance, our family's survival, is it really beneath us? Menial work may also be a blessing. Because it is menial, even the smallest child can make a meaningful contribution. Children can learn to fold laundry, wash windows, or sort silverware with sufficient skill to feel valued as part of the family. Since daily tasks range from the simple to the complex, participants at every level can feel both needed and useful. They can feel competent yet challenged, as can parents with their overall responsibility for coordinating tasks, people, and projects into a cooperative working whole. Feeling useful and needed is fundamental to creating strong family bonds. Several years ago, one of my students, a young mother of 2 daughters, wrote of the challenges she experienced learning to feel a strong bond with her firstborn. Because this daughter was born prematurely and was kept in intensive care in the hospital for several weeks, the mother spent little time caring for her baby. Even after the baby came home, she looked so fragile that her mother was afraid to hold her. Of course, she loved her daughter, but suffered feelings of deficiency, often to the point of tears, and through the years often wondered, why don't I feel that natural bond with my first child that I do with my second? Then she learned about the idea of working together as a means to build bonds. She purposely included her daughter in her work around the house, and gradually, she recalls, our relationship deepened in a way that I had despaired of ever realizing. She describes the moment she realized the change that had taken place. One morning before the girls were to leave to visit family in another state, Mandy and I were sitting and folding towels together, chattering away. As I looked at her, a sudden rush of maternal love flooded over me. It was no longer something I had to work at. She looked up at me and must have read my heart in my expression. We fell laughing and crying into each other's arms. She looked up at me and said, "Mom, what would you do without me?" I couldn't even answer her because the thought was too painful to entertain. Family work is also devalued because it's never done. Almost as quickly as a job is finished, it must be redone. Dust gathers on furniture, dirt accumulates on floors, beds are slept in, children get hungry and dirty, meals are eaten, and clothes are soiled. Yet each rendering of a task is a new invitation for all to enter the family circle. The most ordinary chores can become daily rituals of family love and belonging. Family identity is built moment by moment amidst the talking, teasing, confiding, and storytelling, and even the disagreements and anguish that may attend some shared work sessions. If working together doesn't go well one day, the next day presents the opportunity to try again. My husband and I learned this firsthand. 4 of our sons are adopted, 1 at birth, the others at ages 7, 9, and 9. Lacking some of the connection of biology, attachment of children to adoptive parents is less secure. Sometimes this is labeled attachment disorder. 3 of our sons came from Russian orphanages. In the orphanage, you had to do what you were told. Surely parents would be easier on you. I remember the first time I asked Dmitri to vacuum the floor. He refused. I placed my hand over his on the vacuum handle. You have to envision this. And together, we vacuumed the floor. He did not like this idea, but he went along with it anyway. We did this the next week and the next, and then one weekend he got up and began vacuuming by himself. What's more, he seemed to enjoy it. Over time, as we did family work together, as they accepted the responsibility for certain tasks, as we worked side by side to clean a room or do the laundry, they were transformed from guests into family members. Perhaps foremost, family work binds us to others because it requires sacrifice. Not the burdensome sacrifice of one person doing all the work while other family members live a life of ease. Rather, it is a sacrifice required of each member, learning to see one's own needs in terms of the needs of the whole family. Research shows that little children easily make such loving sacrifices. They love to help. They love to feel useful, to be able to do what daddy does, what mommy does. But as they become teens, many lose that love of helping. For their part, parents have limited time. There are so many competing interests. Plus, it takes patience to listen to children, an effort to keep them on task. Parents want to see the job done, preferably as quickly as possible. Working with children slows the work down. Professor Hill relates an experience washing dishes with his young daughter. He wanted to give working together a try, so he offered to help her wash dishes. Being a manager, he started giving instructions. You do this, and I'll do this. They weren't far into the job when his daughter protested. You said you would help me, but now you are making me help you. This brought her father up short. But he's a quick learner, so he said, okay, how would you like me to help you? Then his daughter organized the task. You do this, and I will do that. A job that normally took 10 or 15 minutes ended up taking over an hour as they worked and talked together. When the dishes were done, he said he was sorry to see the job finished. Parents will not likely have this kind of epiphany every time they work together with their children, but the relational benefits of making such a time investment, even once in a while, will carry over to days when you must hurry through the work. As an aside, I think it's a big mistake to focus on the amount of time spent on family work. It's a distraction from the real issue. This is not about time spent doing chores or the numbers of tasks completed. Just because some work with children is good doesn't mean more is always better. When it comes to family work, even small occasions of working together can make a big difference in building family relationships. What matters for relationship building is what happens while you work. Nor does everyone have to get along all the time as the family works together. Remember, the home is a learning environment, and learning to cooperate and move ahead despite differences and disagreements is part of the process. Another side issue is that working together and playing together don't carry the same amount of weight. Playing together is a good activity, but play is more mental, and so you can't converse as much while you play as you can when you're working side by side. Also, play requires less sacrifice. Kids are mostly happy to go play. They're not mostly happy to go work. Let's consider a few of the sacrifices required for successful joint family work. Parents usually want to complete family work quickly while children have a pace all their own. Slowing our pace, sacrificing our need to hurry so as to work at the pace of a child, opens the opportunity of seeing the child more clearly, of paying attention to what is needed for her growth. We want our children to love and serve one another. Is there a pace for work more conducive to that kind of learning? As a teacher and a mother of young children, I found myself saying hurry almost more than any other word. When our son Alden was 4 or 5 years old and Jonathan was a baby, I was racing to get them ready to accompany me to campus. We had just finished their baths, and I was getting the little one ready. Alden was supposed to be dressing himself. I went from bedroom to bathroom to see what progress he was making. There he was, sitting on the floor, wrapped securely in a bath towel. Not even his head and toes were showing. I panicked. Alden, hurry, I'll be late. You have to hurry and get dressed. He was not impressed. I can't hurry, Mom. I'm a butterfly. And if I move my wings before they're dry, I'll hurt them. His answer forced me to re-examine my priorities. What a lesson for me. Parents sometimes use money as an incentive to get children to work because it's an easy way to get them to do what we want, at least initially. But what does money do to the sacrifice? The sacrifice element. It changes what was being offered as a gift done for others to something done in self-interest. If you ask a child to clear the table and I come along and ask them why they cleared the table, they will probably answer they did it because it was their job or because Dad asked them to. But if you pay them $1 for clearing the table, odds are they will say they did it for money. It seems a natural human tendency to prefer the easy over the hard way. Faced with a task large or small, children sometimes complain it's too hard. Parents use the same complaint to justify not involving children in family work or working with them. It's too hard. Yet as many adages attest, usually it is hard labor that produces growth. So don't throw your hands in the air. If you try working together, everything doesn't fall easily into place. Don't allow yourselves to start thinking that if it isn't easy, you must be doing something wrong. Because it is hard work. It draws on the best that is in you to discover ways to involve your whole family in the essential tasks of life. One summer morning, our 10-year-old son was supposed to mow the lawn. The part of the lawn he was to mow was on a gentle slope, not too steep, but enough to offer some challenge to a 10-year-old. He could think of many reasons to procrastinate. The hours passed and the day grew warm. I don't remember what language I used to make the point that mowing was not optional. I hope it was kindly. Finally, in the heat of the day, he got to work, and moaned and groaned his way up and down the hill. I brought him lemonade. He drank it and kept mowing. At last the job was done, and I'll never forget his words as he looked over the mowed lawn. Isn't it amazing? Sometimes when you do something you thought you couldn't do, you feel like you could fly. Home is where we learn such truths for both parents and children, laboring together, feeling stretched to share, to sacrifice, and helping to serve and sustain one's own is a blessing. Don't expect it to be easy. Know it will be a challenge, but also know there will be days when you feel a deep satisfaction. There may even be times when you feel you can fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. All right, our final speaker today is Father Jaroslaw Szymcsak. His topic today is personal happiness. Is personal happiness the goal of marriage? Father Szymcsak was born in 1962 and ordained a priest in 1985. He's a member of the Institute of the Holy Family in Łomieńki near Warsaw, Poland. He is a doctor of theology on marriage and family and has been a lecturer at Cardinal Stefan Wysznski University for 25 years. Nicknamed Rescuer of Married Couples, he has devoted decades of his work as a priest to marriage counseling, spiritual direction, and confessing. He is co-author of the Love and Life programs, a series of dynamic workshops for couples run in Poland and abroad, including in the USA. He is a chaplain to the World Congress of Families and to allied health programs of Pope Paul VI Institute. He enjoys marathon running and scuba diving in his free time.
Let me check, is it okay if I will speak without microphone, or it's, because I will. Is personal happiness the goal of marriage? And what generally we think about marriage is just to find a perfect path. And why? Because we feel that we need somebody who will answer to several my needs. And what generally society do, and what the media are informing us, that the best way is just to explain to the other person all my needs, so that the other person will understand my needs and will answer. So while still looking for all kind of second half, like in puzzles, that somebody is really perfectly matched for me. And it looks sometimes as if, from the engineering point of view, the best idea that we can find a cogwheel, the girl, so that I know I explain my needs, and my wife, my husband, also will explain his or her needs, and then so that we can perfectly match our needs, and then we'll have a perfect mechanism. It looks nice, but at the same moment, we can see that this is every axle is turning on his or her own self. So if something happens, like I am not satisfied by the other side, my needs are not properly answered, what I will do, I will look for another cogwheel. I will check with another, and and another will give me a much better, smooth move. So that's what we can call this. In that kind of marriage relationship, what they can do is only harmonizing their egos. And this is for many the best way how to marry, the best way how to survive in marriage, just to harmonizing egos. But marriage is not to harmonizing egos. It's of course totally different. It's a gift of self. And of course, I have been working with couples for 30 years, the beginning was very nice work because I just started with the couple who were at very good position and they like to grow together. Now most of my clients are couple in crisis, thinking about divorce or something close to divorce. And how often I met just the idea that we have to talk to understand our needs, and then we can answer it properly. And in many other situations, it was like we have a situation, we have the harmonizing of egos, and then it's the perfect gift of self, and we are tempted which side we should choose. Of course, harmonizing egos, it's harmonizing egos, I don't like it, but at the same moment, if I will trust the other person, I will be totally 100% gift of self, he will use me. I will be consumed. I will not survive because he will take everything and he will never give me any kind of reward. So I will be used, I will be consumed, I will be loser. So maybe I should protect my position, maybe I should make some boundaries, maybe I should ask him for something as a reward, or I will give you this, so that's time for you to give me something other. But fighting for ourselves, it's selfish, it doesn't look good, so better is to be 100% total gift of self. And I'd be happy giving myself. But, so that we are tempted. But if you will choose this, everything what I will do here, it's generally very good for any kind of relationship. If I am honest, if I am really 100% gift of self, if I'm happy with this, so there's no problem. Like, I can smile to any person, and if the other person will not answer me, the smile, it's still okay. Because it's like somebody make an idea. Gary Chapman in his book, Five Love Languages. It's like we are like a tank. If I am full, it's no problem for me to give. If I am empty, I will look all the time when I can take something to fill my tank. So that kind of situation is that people are looking for some, in harmonizing ego, it's like looking, okay, it's now my time to receive some fuel. And then I will give you, but now it's my time. But here is that I love to share, I love to give, I love to be 100% gift of self. Because in giving, you are still receiving. And a person who is all the time focused on receiving will never be happy. That you can have a person who is billionaire, but is always looking where I can receive more. Only when we are givers, we are happy. And the question is, harmonizing egos is like using, but here is being. To be for somebody, not to use somebody. And okay, so let's decide we will do this, but how? People are often thinking, okay, it's difficult. It's like changing a lot of things in my life. It's so, it takes some time, it's so difficult. No, it's not. It's very simple, like this. Very simple, because the only thing what we have to do, when we will decide that I will be a sincere gift of self, which is the beautiful sentence from St. John Paul II, man cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of self. So the only way, what we have to do is to decide which side will receive the what we call examination of conscience. Because I can all the time examine conscience of my spouse. Did I receive from him Did he show me respect? Did he remember my birthday? Did he took me somewhere and stop asking questions about my spouse? I will start asking questions myself. Did my wife know how much I love and respect her? Did I call her? Did I send her a text? Did she really knows how important is she for me? So if you will start questioning ourselves, that will be perfect gift of self. And I do not need to ask the same questions about my spouse, because what I really want to do is just to explain my love to my spouse. And it's always a lot of questions given by the people. These are three elements of the perfect gift. For sure, the first one, it should be free. It's not a transaction. It's not a deal. It's not, I will give you, but by one condition, I should receive something similar. Okay, I will go with you somewhere. I don't like to visit your parents, but I will go with you to visit your parents. But the next weekend, I will go with my buddies to fishing. So that the couple understand that if he do something special for her, she have to do something special for him. That is like harmonizing egos. Nothing. If my gift will be free, I will do what I will do happy. I love to do this for you. And my gift is free, no conditions. I know that unconditional love is difficult for us. But if you think about unconditional love we receive from God, it's like, do you know that, could you imagine that we can do nothing to be loved more by God? I can say, you know, my face, it's a rosary. I can say 5 rosaries. If I would say 50 rosaries, if I study Bible 10 hours daily, I would be never loved more by God. Because His love is unconditional. I am loved and that's all. It's a beautiful picture. So we can see God the Father, the old man with nice beard. He's on the clouds.
Yep.
He's staying on the cloud, and he has a huge earth in front of him. And he's looking at this earth and saying, I love them so much. I love them so much. And there are 2 angels next to this cloud, on the other cloud. And one makes comment to the other. He can say this all day long, never stops. This is how God loves us, unconditional. And unconditional love is I know it's a challenge for us, but unconditional means no conditions. So it's free. When our love is free, at the same moment is creative. Because I am not obliged to do, and we know that how often it's like, okay, I will do it, but I am, like the children, limited, only to do what they are forced to do. If I love my spouse, unconditionally, totally free, I will be creative, what I can do. Like you are creative when the matter is about your children. It's the same, okay, let's take this love for children back to your spouse. Be creative with your spouse. And the third element is, if the really love is free, if really it's creative, it will be joyful. There is no gift like, we have a mature audience. So it's like husband is asking his wife, honey, it was a long time when we were together recently, maybe this night, go away. And he's like, well, let's think about it. Maybe tonight, go away, please. And he's asking and asking and asking, and finally she's so tired, so what she would say, okay, happy. It's not that beautiful idea of giving a gift of self. And for sure it's not joyful. And even if the husband will receive a gift given this way, it's not connected with happiness. But if the gift is really free, it's really creative, will be always joyful. And let's start love this way. So now, thank you so much.